Hey everyone, Richard Razor Sharp here with another video, and today I'm going to show you how to zero gap the Andis Slimline Pro Li clippers with the GTX blade. Now if you're using this clipper with the standard blade, the process is exactly the same. Okay, so you can follow this video as well. So firstly, what you're going to need to use to do this is you're going to need some lubricating oil for after you've zero gapped your blades, just to re-lubricate them. You're going to need a screwdriver. I've got a couple here, you'll see why in a minute. And then you're going to need a brush just to brush out any excess debris that you may have if you've already been using the the trimmers, and it's built up some hair or some residue. You may want to just clear that out, and you'll need some disinfectant spray as well. I'm using Andis Cool Care clipper disinfectant. You can use not Babyliss. Babyliss have their own version, but you've also got Barbicide, which is a very popular one as well. And then my other little secret tool that I use is an iPhone, or any smartphone, whichever you use, iPhone, Android, whatever you use, and I'll show you why that will come in handy in just a moment. Okay, so firstly, why are you going to want to zero gap your trimmers? It allows the trimmer to cut sharper, to cut closer as well. So for example, some people use trimmers to bald out and to take their hair really low on the sides if they're doing a skin fade, or if they're just taking off all their hair. If you zero gap the blades, then it will cut even closer than the length the blades come to when they're factory set. Okay, and then for shaping up and doing beard trims, etc., it will also do a sharper shape up as well. So let's get into it. First thing you're going to want to do is remove the blade. So you've got these two screws here which we're going to need to remove, so I will just quickly do that for you. So that's one blade out, one screw out, two screws out. Okay, and now blade lifts off. Simple as that. Okay, so here you have the GTX blade, and then if I flip it over, you've got the inside cutting blade as well, and that mechanism there. Okay, now I'd actually cleaned these recently, so it doesn't actually look that dirty, but they can be a build up of hair and of debris that you need to deal with. Okay, so what you're going to need to do is remove those two screws in the middle that you see right there. If I get in a bit closer, there you go. Yeah, those two screws that you see in the middle, you're going to need to remove those. Not remove them, you're going to need to loosen them. Okay, so here I've got my screwdriver, and I'm just going to loosen those two blades. Let's get the ratchet setting right. Okay. All right. Okay, so I've now loosened those blades, and with those two screws. Now with those two screws loosened, I can now begin to adjust and manipulate the blade, and I can move it backwards and forwards, side to side. Okay, and it will move and it will adjust. So if I was to move it backwards, just so hopefully you can see here, the blade is now, the cutting blade is set back far behind the outer blade, and I hope that picks up well for you there. Okay, so we want to zero gap it, and we want to get the cutting blade, this inside blade, as close to the front of the outer blade, or the top of the outer blade, as possible. Okay, so what you don't want is the cutting blade to protrude over the outer blade. So you can use your finger to kind of feel, and if you're feeling a sharp grazing, then that might mean the cutting blade is set too close. But I'm also going to show you a little tip and a little trick that I use personally. Okay, I've got that in a place where I like it to be. So now what I'm going to do is now tighten up those two screws. Okay, just tighten it again a little bit more. Okay, think that's satisfactory. Okay. All right. Okay, so I've now tightened those up. Now here's where I'm going to give you a little insider's tip to check that you zero gapped your blades correctly. So as I said, you can use any smartphone. On the iPhone you have an app called Magnifier, and basically when you go into the app it will use your camera and it will magnify anything that it's looking at. So I hope you can see this well on your screen, but what I can see at my end is that I can see very close detail of the blade. So I can see if the blade is protruding, the cutting blade is protruding over the outer blade, and from what I can see here, I feel like I've set this pretty perfectly. So I'm really happy with how it's set. It's right to the edge of the outer blade, but it's not protruding over. But now we'll do a little test to see if I have actually done a good job of this. Okay, so I'm going to need to put the blade back on the trimmer, and then we'll test how sharp it feels. Now I'm also going to give you another insider's tip in regards to specifically the Andis Slimline Pro Li. The motor on the Andis Slimline Pro Li is not as powerful as some of the trimmers we now have on the market, and because of this, the blades can be set further forward than some other trimmers. So for example, I found on Babyliss trimmers which have a very powerful motor, I would not put the cutting blade so close to the front of the outer blade because it's so powerful, it will really cut people to bits. But with the Andis Slimline Pro, it's okay. So testing it out now, what people will commonly do is they'll just test it on the back of their hand, and they'll just turn it on and they'll test it like that. Okay, now what you should do as well, which I just didn't do there, so forgive me, is add some oil. So add a bit of lubricant oil to each side of the cutting blade, turn it on, maybe leave it on for about 15 seconds to 20 seconds, let that oil just kind of go through the blades, make sure it's well lubricated so it cuts smoothly. If your trimmers sound very loud, it may be that because the blades aren't oiled enough. So the metal against metal is really kind of causing a lot of friction and creates that loud noise. Okay, so right, I've added some oil, dry off the excess with kitchen towel, and then yeah, people will commonly test their trimmers on the back of their hand. Okay, now that's fine, but the best way to test how sharp they are and how well you've zero gapped them is actually on the inside of your arm. The skin there is more sensitive and is softer, which replicates better the hair on your head if you're doing shape ups, and then particularly if you're cutting children. So what I would do is just on the inside of my arm, I will then just test it out, and that feels good to me. It's cutting sharp. Yeah, done a good job there, and my skin's not being cut at all because of the blade, so it means it's been set correctly. If that cutting blade was set in front of the outer blade, it would not be good and it would likely cut my arm, but it's not cutting my arm. Actually, it's just really doing a good job of balding off the hair. So I know I've set these correctly, so I'm happy with that. Okay, so guys, that is it. It's as simple as that. So hopefully you found this useful. You were able to see things well enough, and now you can go ahead and zero gap your Andis Slimline Pro LIs. So guys, until the next time, take care of yourself. Peace.